Hi everyone, I'll just come back about here. In this video I'm going to do, I've had a couple of questions we'll use this as one of the pictures, why not? In this video I'm going to do a video on, I'm hoping for it to be quite an intuitive video, because the video that I planned to do it for was somebody said, "Hi John, what does exposing to the right mean and why do you do it? What's the reason for exposing to the right?" Now, exposing to the right is where when you take a picture and you use your histogram, it's where your histogram's pushed over to the right but not fully over to the right where you've lost lots of detail. So, I thought it'd be best to come into the kitchen in low light, because one of the reasons, two reasons why I like to expose to the right, and I always do it on every shot, is because I probably wouldn't do it if I was trying to create a mood. Like my friend's just done photographed 4 models, and he sort of underexposed his images up, but he did it for a reason, to create mood. Now that's one time where you might underexpose, but most of the time I'll overexpose, one, for some detail in the shadows, because the camera will usually, if you meet it and you take a picture, it'll expose for the highlights and you'll have hardly no detail in the shadows. Yes, you can bring the shadows back up, but I'd rather expose on the hot side. 2, Lightroom 4, I've got to say, you struggle to ruin an image with Lightroom 4. It can just recover anything, it's absolutely stonking. And 2, if I'm photographing me here now, if I use AV, I'll end up with dark eye sockets. So I always overexpose for that reason as well. That's why I don't use AV I did start to use it a little bit, but then I got really cheesed off at what it were doing for me. So 98% of the time now I'm actually in manual. If I was shooting a sports event or photographing different situations, I probably would use AV and TV, but as a rule I use manual, and I always overexpose and push my histogram to the right. 2, by learning to do that, you'll have more detail in your shadows, you'll have better light in somebody's eyes when you're doing a portrait, you'll have that's what I was going to say, I've totally forgot now. And one really important thing, which is very important, is when you use high ISOs, or even any ISOs, but ISOs, when you start pushing them up, if you use AV and AV gets it wrong, you're going to end up with loads of noise in the shadows, where getting the exposure correct will make all the difference. So without further ado, I'm going to get on and I'm going to take some pictures. Once I've took them, I'm going to put the camera on a tripod and I'm going to show you, because I don't want to show you Lightroom's histogram, because Lightroom's histogram tends to push everything back to the left, but I want to show you the camera's histogram. And I'm going to photograph some things, and I'm going to show you the pictures. And I'm not going to use AV, I've just told you why, because I don't like it. I could use it and use exposure compensation, but I'm not gonna. But what I will do, every time I'm taking a shot, I'll centre it first, and I'll take the shot, and then I'll let you know if I'm overexposing it or underexposing it. So first things first, I'm going to photograph, I know you can't really see, but I'm going to photograph this fairy liquid bowl. So let's go on to the camera settings. I'm going to turn on the camera, I'm going to check I'm in N for manual. I'm in low light, this is quite low light, it's not ultra low light, but it's low light. So I'm going to put my aperture down to f2.2. I'm using this nifty 50mm lens. I'm going to put my ISO to 400. Why 400? I don't know. I may need to adjust that, but that's my starting point. I'm going to put 1/100 of a second on the shutter speed. Now I'm happy to shoot this lens at a 60th of a second, but I'll start at 100 and I'll take the shot, or I'll see what it's saying on my meter, and I'll talk you through my shots, and I'll show you. I'm going to do about 5 or 6 shots, and then I'm going to talk you through whether I'm overexposing or underexposing. I'm going to push them all to the right on the histogram. Then we're going to go upstairs, and then I'm going to do some more shots. I'll probably do them again, with my ISO turned up, and I'll open my aperture to a 5.6 so that I've got to pump the ISO up, and I'll show you just how well pushing the histogram to the right helps. So first things first, right, okay, so I've took that shot and it's centred on the meter in manual at 1/60th of a second, 1/160th. And the meter said it's okay, but I'll tell you now, I think it's too dark, so I'm going to overexpose the image now, one full stop. Not using exposure compensation because I'm in manual. I'm going to slow down my shutter speed 3 clicks, which has gone to an 80th of a second, which is showing one full stop over on the meter. And I tell you what, I'm going to keep the before and afters. So there's the first shot and it's pushed over to the right. It's not pushed over a lot, I could probably even push it a little bit more. But for the purpose of the video I won't go too hot, I'm just going to show you something. So now I'm going to go photograph this car, I'll turn it round. So, 1/100 of a second. Don't forget, I'm not changing my aperture or my ISO yet. I'm getting 1/100 of a second, and the thing what's happening with this is the histogram is pushed over to the right, but it's not blown out, but I've got a little bit of white windows on the car. So I'm going to manually now, so hopefully this is going to be a double lesson, I'm still going to overexpose it a little bit, and I'm not bothered about these little white windows. I'm bothered about the shadow behind it and stuff like that. And I'll keep the before and after. Again, I've overexposed a full stop, but I've got a bit of blinking on the windows on the car. I don't know if you can see this, but you will on the PC. It's got little white windows on, but now the exposure and the shadows at the back is a lot better. I'll have a lot less noise in the shadows, and to be honest, I'll probably be able to recover the windows in 2 seconds anyway, but if for any reason I couldn't, I don't care about them 2 little white windows. So again, you need to decide what you care about when you're photographing. Like this bottle now, this bottle of Ronson's, it's going to be a rubbish picture, but I've got the window shining through and I've got a reflection here. That's going to blow out, but I'm not bothered about that reflection. I'm bothered about photographing the bottle, right? So I'll put the camera up to my eye, still no settings. I'm at 50th of a second, by the way. That's what I did, took one at 1/100 of a second. It was too dark, I then slowed down to a 50th. Right, again, I've took that at 1/100 of a second. That's showing centred on the meter. Again, I'm going to go down to a 60th this time to push the histogram over to the right. It is already going over to the right because of it. That's only this little highlight. So you need to learn how to read your histogram as well. Right, I'll keep them. That's a bloody ton better. Have I lost detail still? I never looked. Yeah, it's blinking right on the Windows highlight, but who cares about that? But that's what you get in AV. It'd be underexposed. I could even push that a little bit more. I could even push that another half a stop. But for the video, right, I don't think I need to do any more. I'm going to photograph this here now, which has got an highlight on it, and it's going into the back of a shadow. So I'll leave the shutter speed at a 60th and let you know what's going on. Right, so at an 80th of a second, the difference here is the bottle is getting illuminated by the window light and I'm shooting into a dark shadow behind. But I'm still going to, what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to double my ISO because my shutter speed is at an 80th of a second and I don't really want to slow it down anymore. just frame it a bit tighter so it matches the first one. Right, okay, so I've overexposed that again and I've got a bit of a blinking highlight on the glass. I'll show you it on when I film the back of the camera, you'll see it more better. So there is an example of every shot that I've taken, I've overexposed. Why? And I've pushed to the right. Why? Because of the meter don't get it right, it's just a guideline, and it's because if the background was the same illuminated as the front of this fairy liquid, it's dropping into shadow at back here onto a black side. You'd get a better exposure. So all I've done is the camera's detected the bright highlights on the bottle, which there's a couple of bright highlights on the bottle, but they're nothing to worry about. That's why it's underexposed the images. So you need to watch out for that and care what you care about. So just for that, I'll do one more picture now of this dinner. Got some dinner here. See if we can get a nice shot at dinner. Oops. So, I've shot it at 1/60th of a second, ISO 800. I've left my ISO now because I want a decent shutter speed. And I'm looking at that, and that's not bad, but again, I'm going to push it a little bit more over to the right. So, because the light's coming in from this far window here, it's illuminating the tatey on the plate, and it's underexposing the broccoli violently, well not violently, but a bit. So I'm going to take another shot, and I'm going to overexpose it at 2/3 of a stop. Now I know I've moved a bit, but I'm happy with that. Right, okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you these pictures and show you exactly what I've done. So hi everyone, so here's the image as said on the camera. I'm actually recording the back of the camera. I don't know if I've got the exposure absolutely right on the fairy liquid bottle, so I don't know if it's going to look too dark or too bright on the PC, but I've done my best to make it look like what I'm seeing on the camera. Now if you look at the first shot, it is showing a little dark. As you can see, the histogram's not over to the right. So if you remember, I overexposed it. Don't get me wrong, the light meter inside the camera was saying that that's the exposure. If you took it in AV, that's what you'd end up with. I then manually overrode the settings and put it into one full stop over, and as you can see now, I've pushed the histogram over to the right. I could have even pushed it a little bit more looking at the histogram, but I'm happy at that. That's a lot better than that one. Now let's just evaluate the full screen. So we go, if you look at those shadows now at the back, I've now brought a lot of detail, and if that ISO was up to 800 or 1600, that exposure would look a lot noisier than that. That could be 800, that could be 1600 there, and they'd probably look the same on the ISO because you've underexposed that, you've listened to your meter. So there's a prime example of exposing to the right. Let's go to the window. Now if you remember, I'm just going to zoom in on this one there. If you remember, I told you that the windows on the car was white, and that's what was throwing the meter off. So if you actually take a look, you can see the histogram is nearly over to the right. You are nearly getting some clipping. But I knew that it was the windows on the car, but if you look behind at the back of the car, it's really dark. So again, I overexposed it. Now if you look now, if you look at the, I mean I moved a bit obviously, I should have tripoded, but can you see all the detail now that's coming in the side? Which we didn't have if we listen, oh, what have I just done there? If we listen to the meter, which we got there, we've lost all that detail, look, before and after. So another reason for exposing to the right. But I have got, if you look, it is pushed over to the right now, but you've got to distinguish what's important. I wanted some detail in those shadows, and I didn't mind losing that bit of detail on those windows. I know anyway I'll be able to recover them in 2 seconds flat. I know they're no more than a stop overexposed because I didn't have no blinking here, and I've only overexposed it a stop, and I know that they'll recover in seconds in Lightroom. So I'll go into the bottle. Oh, it's not auto rotated on the camera. I'll just zoom out. Look at the histogram, we've got a right tiny bit of clipping. But the actual detail of it's in the middle here, this is it. That's the detail of the bottle. And if you look where it is, it's right over to the left. Now it's over to the right. I could have even pushed it a bit more. Let me just show you before and a stop overexposed. I'm not saying that you're going to overexpose every image a stop, but to be honest, I overexpose most of mine a stop to always get detail in shadows. And we finish off on the bottle. Overexposed, normally exposed. Zoom in. Normally exposed, listening to the meter. Overexposed. Now I've lost a bit of detail on the left of the bottle, but I don't care. Can you see it blinking there now? I don't care about that. And again, I know it's only a stop if that overexposed is that highlight and I can fix it in 2 seconds. How do I know it's only a stop overexposed? Well, I ain't got no blinking there, so, and I've only slowed my shutter down. Sorry, I upped my ISO, didn't I? I know that I've only gone up a stop, and I know that I can recover at least 2 or 3 stops in Lightroom 4. Even Lightroom 3 you can do 2 stops. So now let's go to the dinner plate. If you look at the, let's just show you the before and after. Look, you see? Now I have lost a bit of detail on the cauliflower. Now this is one where you probably could have kept it as normal, but again I've still pushed the histogram overlook. And I've lost a little bit of detail in the cauliflower. You can see it blinking there, but again I know that there's no blinking there. There's a little bit when I've pushed my histogram to the right, but it'll recover in 2 seconds flat, which I'll finish it off and show you in post-production. And I'm not actually going to do the ISO. Basically this is why, I mean it'll probably show ISO 800. Did I use this one? Hang on, did I take both of these? This will be an example. When we look at it on the PC, if we look over to the left here where it's very low on shadows, and then we look at this one, you'll see it'll look a lot cleaner on the ISO performance, even though it's taken at the same ISO. Anyway, I hope this video helps and answers your question of why you might expose to the right. Every shot I've just taken I've overexposed deliberately, and don't forget it's good for portraits to get some light into the eyes. It's good for getting good exposure in the shadows, and it's just a good way to go unless you're really wanting to create a dramatic scene. But I wouldn't recommend listening to the meter and doing stuff like this. If you're pumping your ISO up now, that image there, if you were using 1600 there, because it's so badly underexposed behind the bottle, meaning here, round here and round here, it'll look disgusting on PC because it's violently underexposed. That, and it'll kick it straight into touch. It'll look a lot cleaner. It'll look a stop, if not 2 stops cleaner on the ISO. Hi everyone, and welcome to the last part of the video. This is just a quick fly through some of the images on the PC. I'll just go through them untouched. There's the first one. We'll just shift tab just to make it a bit bigger. There's my overriding the exposure. Same again, camera's telling me what to do, me ignoring it and overexposing a little bit. Camera telling me what to do, me telling it to go away. Same again, and same again, me ignoring the camera and overexposing. To be honest, this one was actually an exposure where the camera got it. It probably would be fine that, but I also pushed it up. Me being me, got some more detail in this shadow and in the broccoli there, knowing I can recover it. So if we just shift tab and come back off the, if we go back to the first image now, and I'll just walk through my workflow. I always do it. I'll add a 55% sharpening, and I will enable lens correction. I will remove the chromatic aberration. I'll hold the shift key, click the sync button, sync all, command D to deselect. Selecting back on the first image, pressing the D key, making sure we're in the develop module, and there we go. Right, okay. So remember when I said to you, I'm just going to show you on 2 images, that's all. Remember when I told you that if you don't get your detail in the shadows and you want to fix them later, that you need to get your exposure right so that you're not I repeat, so that you're not having to fix it later. So let's go for example, this is my shot, and as you can see, if you look at the histogram, we've got a lot more detail in the shadows. And when you pump a bit of contrast onto that, you lose a bit of that detail, but it's looking quite a bit more punchy, and we've still got detail in the shadows. But if we go back to the first one and we pump up some contrast, you can quickly see that we lose the shadows, and it looks terrible. So, remember, I use my camera for an exposure, not for editing. So let's actually, if I go to the next one, if you look at the shutter speed, I went from 1/60th to 80th. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up a stop to match the exposure of this one. And the shadow looks a little bit dark on the first one, so I'll bring up the shadows a little bit as well. So there, they're looking still a little bit more. There. So I've now fixed the first image, which a lot of people would do, right? But let's go and have a look over in these shadows and have a look at the one that I've just fixed. And then look at the one that I got correct out of camera. And I'll let you make up the choice which one you like best. Same image, I just got the exposure right and fixed it. Now look at the state of the one on the left. Now if you don't do any editing to it, out of the camera, it doesn't look too bad. If you double click the shadows and double click that, and then you zoom in, there isn't much difference in the noise. There's a little bit more on there, but obviously when you're going to print it, you're going to rescue it and you're going to start bringing up the shadows in post-production. So we'll skip that image now and we'll go to say this image. Let's have a look at the one that I rescued. An 80th, a 60th, and we went up one stop. So if we now go, I mean, I don't want to go up too much. Oops. About there, right? So let's go on the one now, and then we'll go on the, I know it's probably not the fairest of comparisons, but there's the one out of the camera and there's the fixed one. Look at the state of the fixed one. So I don't really want to keep going on forever more. And then here's another example. If we, this was taken at, hang on, we took it at an 80th a second, so it's one click there, and then we double the ISO. So let's, right, we'll just bring the shadows up a little bit, probably a little bit about there. We'll go like that. Again, not getting the exposure for the shadows right in the camera and getting the exposure correct. You can clearly see there's a massive difference. So we'll now recover the highlights. Remember I was on about the plate? To be honest, this was centered in the camera, and this is one shot what would be I'd be perfectly happy with that out of the camera, really. I mean, I overexposed it again because me being me, I like to get nice detail in my shadows. If you look, this has got loss of detail in the shadows on all three channels. The one where I overexposed a bit has just got a little bit of detail loss. So if I just go up on the blacks, let's actually do it all with the blacks. No, we'll put the blacks up to 15 and we'll put the shadows up to 15. And then we'll do the same on this one. Oops, 15. They're about the same. Oops. So there you go. I mean, to be honest, these are both as good as each other. So let's bring the highlights down a little bit, just to bring those highlights. Bring the whites down a little bit. Put the clarity up. Put the vibrance up. Warm it up. No, don't warm it up too much, actually. And if you go before and after, before and after. And to be in all fairness, like I said to you, that's the one shot where the camera got it right for once in its life. Even out of the camera, that's a good enough exposure. But like you say, that there, I mean, let's just shift command R. That's how my camera decided to expose it. Now that to me, if that were a wedding and I was shooting that at 1600 or 3200, the amount of noise that I'd get from that exposure would be unbelievable. Especially if I try to fix the shadows, especially if you try to go like that and bring your shadows up a bit and bring your exposure up a little bit. And as you can see, Voila, voila, voila. Absolutely disgusting. So I hope this video helps. It should help you on explaining why I expose to the right, why people talk about exposing to the right, why people do it to get light in the eyes, why people do it to get more exposure into the shadows, and especially with Lightroom 4 having the highlight recovery it does. Bearing in mind there's some highlights lost on this, we wouldn't even have to recover them if we didn't want. You know, there's nothing wrong with them, I don't care about them, but if we wanted to, we could just pull them down and just go something like that, and we've recovered them in 2 seconds. But those little blotches, I wouldn't even care if they're recovered or not. So you got before and after, look, before and after, recovering nicely. So there's another reason why we expose to the right, so that we end up with low noise images. Otherwise, when we come to fix the shadows later on and fix things later on, you're going to introduce more noise. To let light into the eyes, and that's it basically. I hope this video answers your question on exposing to the right. I know it's gone on a little bit, but hopefully I've gone into a fair few details. The only thing I didn't have with my son, just to show you why I'd do it to put some light in his eyes, but I have got lots of videos on that anyway. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please comment and subscribe.